Welcome to Power and Reset.
Man.
In case you can't figure it out from our amazing intro, today we're talking about Mech games.
Yes, we are.
I'm Reset, and I'm joined as always by Power. How you doing, Power?
I'm doing great, Reset. How about you?
I'm good. I'm very curious to see if any of our astute and dedicated listeners caught that we've switched names.
Don't spoil it for them. Give them time to
man,
really
you're
let
right.
it settle,
Gotta
all right?
Keep the conspiracy.
I don't want to lose any listeners over this, okay? This was an important thing to them, all right? These names.
The consistency
for the first
matters.
2 episodes, right?
We're deep into it at this point.
We're too deep to be changing names.
This is like, the change between Iron Man 1 and 2.
Right.
It's just going to throw everyone for a loop.
This is Cap and Iron Man, okay? And they picked a side. Now we just changed the names on them, okay?
Flipping it? Ooh,
Here we go. Here we go. I'm doing well. How you doing, Reset? What's new, man?
I'm good. I've got a Sapporo lined up to sip on.
Oh, we drinking Sapporo.
Pour a little sake, have a little Japanese theme going tonight.
Okay.
So I'm stocked up there, and I'm excited to get into all things robots.
Man, I can't wait.
I
can't wait
ordered a
to
Roomba
talk
just
about
for
this.
How's
that working out for you?
It's not great. I had to return it. Kept running into my leg.
Oh man. It's been a long time, man. I'm not gonna lie, since I thought about Mech games.
It's been a minute. I'm trying to think of the last time I really played a Mech game or played something with mechs in it, and I think the closest it comes is Titanfall, because I played a little bit of that after diving into Apex pretty deep.
Right.
But beyond that, it's been a minute since we've really
it's
enjoyed
a graveyard, man. Just be honest. It's dead. A goddamn graveyard.
They're as dead as my old car that's now rusting in some lot.
You know what? I like Titanfall. I loved Titanfall 2. At least the multiplayer. I know many people who thought that was the best multiplayer shooter out to date, and still believe that. But I, as a serious mech player, from the past, playing anything from the OG custom robo to whatever the hell involved, putting a grenade launcher on my shoulder. Mm-hmm. I love those games, and so Titanfall is cool, definitely. But I almost don't even think of it as a mech game. I'm jumping ahead, but it's a graveyard, man. There hasn't been a AAA mech game in a long time.
There really hasn't. It's been a graveyard. Back in the day, it used to be amazing.
Oh, yeah.
We had a huge variety, from fighting games to these almost RPGs, third person, first person,
Absolutely.
All kinds of crazy stuff to entertain
Absolutely.
yourself. Things like the super deep customization, the action oriented gameplay,
Yes.
name it. We had all these different options.
For sure. Sure.
And it really has been a graveyard, and I'm staring at a couple specific companies, one of which I'll get into as to why that is the case.
Okay.
I blame someone in particular for this.
I like that. Well, let's dive in. Let's get into this delicious ribeye meat of mech games.
Let's cut into it.
All right, look. I think you and I should just discuss 3. There's a ton of them out there. Historically, there were a ton of them.
We could go on for days.
We can go on for days. But we should narrow it down to 3.
Okay.
And I already have 3 in mind. I don't know about you.
I think I can cut it. I think I can cut it to 3. I've got 3 I think I really want to talk about.
Well,
I really want to bring up.
Tell me, what made you choose those 3? Just a general idea. Even if you can condense it into one sentence, one word. What is it about these 3 that that's really pulling you in here?
I think if I could condense it to one sentence, it would be the Japanese giant mecha influence.
Hell yeah.
That's what's really pulling me towards these 3 that are my top choices to talk about.
Yes.
What about you? All right, what's influencing your 3?
Big dick. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's big dick. These 3 that I'm about to bring up, the balls and cock on these fucking developers for trying something that's a little out of the box. I gotta just say I was so impressed. All right.
So let me ask you something, right? We've got all these mech games and these giant robots.
Right.
You think they're packing?
You think they're packing? 'Cause I think you know, I think if I could condense it to one sentence, one word, what is it about these three that I'm about to bring up? The balls and cock on these fucking developers for trying something that's a little out of the box. I gotta just say I was so impressed. All right.
So let me ask you something, right? We've got all these mech games and these giant robots.
Right.
You think they're packing?
Oh, trust me, I'm gonna tell you something. All right, one of these games that I'm gonna bring up, they're packing,
'Cause
it's on full display.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I see. I can only think of off the top of my head one person who has been brave enough to show us a little sample of the balls of steel, if you will.
Hey, that's a brave person.
and that is one of those Transformers movies, which I have almost erased from my mind, except for one scene in which they be clanging.
Oh! You talking about the Transformer? That was Boner Prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, he worked for
right
Optimus.
next to Optimus Dick.
Optimus Cock. Yeah. Okay. I know the series well. All right. Well, all right, Sam. Let me start us out, man. Let me.
I want to know what three are the Triforce of your Mech game experience.
When I was thinking through them, I was like, should I go through the three in order of release date, or should I just go through them as most liked to least liked? I really couldn't pick, so I'm gonna throw a dart at the wall right now. Let me bring one out of my head. All right, look. The first one I got to talk about is a game called Rad.
Oh my God.
R-A-D.
R-A-D.
Rad, like totally dude rad.
And the game was rad.
It was rad.
By all definitions.
Yes. Rad stood for Robotic Alchemic Drive. What is that, you ask? I beat the game 4 times, and I cannot tell you. This game was sick as hell, dude.
Yeah, tell us about it. For people, I'm glad you brought it up, because I still have a copy of this disc sitting on, not even like in storage, on the primo display that I leave right next to my television. I still have this game, but not everyone has been as fortunate as us to have experienced how rad is.
Was a game released in 2002, created by Enix at the time, and Sandlot, which is funny because Enix at the time, we all know Enix. Enix merged with Square, and Sandlot. Those are the guys who create the Earth Defense Force games. It makes a lot of sense when you play that game. Some of the balls to the wall mechanics and animations are very similar to.
You can see the origins of that. Okay,
but yeah, it came out in 2002. Joint effort. The artist who designed the characters in the game was the same guy who designed the characters from Cowboy Bebop.
No way.
So the actual characters look hella cool, even though they're very basic. They're not stylized like they were in Cowboy Bebop, but very anime style. Looked really awesome.
That's fat. I did not know that.
Yes. But let's dive into this actual game. So Rad is a game very anime based, obviously. It's a game where you play as one of 3 main characters. The stories, their backgrounds are different, but the story doesn't change depending on who you pick. It's going to be the same episodes. The game's broken up into episodes. I can't remember how many there were. Somewhere between 80 to 120, something like that. And each episode was like a self-contained story, if you will. And I use the term story loosely. Loosely. Loosey-goosey. So you might have an episode, for example, the first episode, you're just Joe Schmo. You're this young anime dude, and you're trying to meet up with your anime friend, and she's coming from her anime grandmother's house. And guess what happens? All of Tokyo gets invaded by these creatures called Volgara.
Uh-oh.
And
so
you might as well
invasion,
just... Yes,
Tokyo.
Of course.
Okay.
Substitute Volgara for Kaiju, right?
Right.
The Kaiju attack, the Volgara attack.
We got
and so you're
mysterious monsters.
You got the mysterious monsters. You're wondering, what the hell's going on? You're playing, though. So this game takes place in Tokyo. You're playing as this character you've picked. The city is actually scaled well. So there are skyscrapers, there are houses, there are neighborhoods and districts. It's huge. It's actually one of the first open world games I can recall in that sense. And so you're meeting your friend at this train station, and these aliens start attacking. These Volgara, they're basically giant humanoid machines.
Okay.
But they look like machines. They don't look like man. They just look like almost like putties, like giant putties from Power Rangers or something like that. But they're huge. I mean, they're the size of a full size skyscraper.
Like multi-story.
Yes, multi-story. you're fighting these giant beasts. So anyways, as the main character, you're trying to get your friend to safety. She just left her grandmother's house. Oh, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-oh.
And you're trying to take the train.
Family drama?
Family drama automatically. this is Japan we're talking
get-go.
about. You know how they like to do their stories. They're bringing it in. They're bringing that heat. I'm like, oh no, we gotta find her. We gotta find her grandmother. Well, you go, you're trying to get to safety. These giant creatures dropping from Earth. They're destroying buildings. I gotta go rescue my grandmother. So you leave the train station. You're running. Boom, her grandmother's house gets hit.
I'm guessing Grandma's not okay.
She's out of there.
Uh-oh.
So this brings me to something I must bring up.
Yes.
One of the biggest cons, if not the biggest con of the game, voice acting. The voice acting is so bad in this game. So bad. I kid you not. If you look up, and I dare our listeners to do this, if you look up a list of the top 10 worst voice acting in any video game, including any genre, this game will be on that list. Guaranteed.
Amazing.
There is an infamous line specifically from when this character's grandmother passes in this horrible accident. Where she goes something like, "Oh no, it's my grandma." She says some line, and it has never died. I mean, I saw a list on a thread recently talking about how bad the voice acting
and
in
it
this game
still
is.
comes
It
up.
still comes up. Voice
I'm
acting
impressed.
is awful.
I didn't even realize that many people knew about this game.
Yeah, it's got a little cult following. It's not too big, but people love what they love. They found it in the mud. But it's a beautiful game. All right, story is kind of shoddy. Voice acting is really bad. But essentially, what happens is some underground, organization who's been working on, of course, a giant robot to face these monsters finds you. I can't recall why they even pick you, but typical anime. You're a high schooler, so of course, who else can defend the Earth from these creatures besides a young underage boy? And so they provide you with the abilities to wield this giant robot, and that's pretty much where the story ends. I mean, there's really not much else for the next 100 episodes. It's always another guy, some other Volgara attacking, and you have to save the day. But what really sold me on this game, this is where the balls come into play. These guys at the time decided, we're going to make a giant robot game. First of all, we're going to make sure that the destruction is believable. Okay. We're going to make sure that the world is scaled to properly. So I don't know if it's 1-on-1 or whatever the heck, but they made sure that your character is you
feel like you're just
a
small person looking up at these giant robots.
And the destructibility was just phenomenal. I mean, everything could be blown up, everything could be destroyed. But they just did that right. They did that well, and it was just great. The controls were very unique. You could swing your left arm with your left stick, your right arm with your right stick. You moved your left leg with your left trigger, your right leg with the right trigger, and you had to take it step by step. Very
methodical controls.
It felt like you were really controlling.
Weighty.
Yeah, weighty. To jump, you had to hold 2 triggers. To kneel, then tap 2 other triggers to release, and you were flying in there. I mean, it was awesome. It just was awesome. And all the while, you're just a guy looking at these fights happen. So you're standing on the streets, you're activating your mech, and then you're letting your mech do the work. And I loved it, man. Like I said, the graphics were great. Music is very forgettable, and I love music. I'm a music guy. So that was definitely a con of the game as well.
And I have to say, like, just to speak on your Grounded, because I have played this game, and I love it too. And the thing that to me that added to that, just that weighty feeling, that sense of scale, was the fact that you don't get in this robot to pilot it. No. Like when you want to pilot it, your character almost has like a controller, almost like the PlayStation
quite
controller
literally.
Or something.
Absolutely.
And you push a button, and then you just look at it from wherever you are.
Right.
So if the fight goes out of range, you gotta stop piloting.
You gotta book
it to some building top. You have this little booster. You could fly up somewhere, and you had to get somewhere. And then you controlled it from there. So you had to think about, you're like, okay, I'm looking at it, but the perspective is a little twisted because it's turned this way. So I got to remember that when I'm walking, I'm going this way.
Absolutely.
And it just added to that complexity that made it feel real.
And again, it was ballsy. It's one of those mechanics that I can't advocate for, but I loved and hated at the same time. And I loved more than I hated, right? Because you're right. you're sitting there on the ground, and you're looking at these two giants fighting. And you can barely see anything. There's a building in front of you, so you're like, shit, like I got this jetpack. Okay, you boost up to the top of a building. All the while you're boosting up, your mech's getting jacked up because you can't control it. You're flying to the top. So then you get to the top, you activate the mech. The camera kind of captures the combat. You know, I can't even tell you. I think the camera was top down once you got to a certain position. And so you're kind of looking at it, but you're still like, there's always an angle that you couldn't catch.
Yeah.
And you're also orienting yourself because your mech's now angled a different way, but the controls are so funky that you're like, okay, so do a hook now. I have to actually angle it this way. I can't just do it like I was behind my mech. So it was so complicated, but it kept me engaged. It was a good way to do it. It felt more realistic than
it was gameplay that wasn't just like push X to attack.
Exactly. I didn't push X to punch or jump. I had to like click two buttons and do this, or if I wanted to do a special, I had to hit L1, R1, put my arms together, then tap a button, then I could shoot a beam out of my like. It was really cool. It was just an engaging game, and so I that one, man, was incredible. And actually, Sam, one thing I should mention, it's 2 players. So later on, you want to get down, you know.
I'll dust that disc off, see if my old PlayStation controllers have any charge left, and
right.
We'll jump in. Man, I forgot that it was 2 players.
Oh yeah, 2 players and maybe over like 20 characters because they allow you to play as the Volgari you defeat, the 3 mechs, and you unlock other abilities through the story mode. So it was awesome. It really was a cool game. It had some good twists, I guess, at the end. You know,
then we may have to see who's the better, the radder pilot, and
yeah.
best part we can put in our own voice acting.
Yeah.
Grandma.
We'll mute the game and we'll take over from there.
All right, so of your top 3, we have Rad, one of the greatest, most unique mech games.
Yes.
What else you got for me?
So look, I know we were talking about controls on Rad, but this next one blows it out of the water, okay?
Uh-oh.
I got to talk about, if we're going to talk mech games, I got to talk about the best $300 I spent in 2003 or 2002 on Steel Battalion, okay?
Oh, Steel Battalion.
Steel Battalion for Xbox came out in 2002. It was sold out freaking everywhere. I ended up picking up a copy of it. I think it was on eBay for like $300. I mean, they were just overpriced, but I had to have one.
Yeah, I mean, what would make a game worth $300? Was this just like the most unbelievable game of all time?
It was the clout, Sam.
It was the clout.
Everyone knew this game had the controller of a lifetime, okay? Let me tell you about this thing. This controller was incredible, right? It had 44 buttons, okay? So first of all, let me divide it up, right? It's technically 4 pieces, 4 separate pieces. You got your center console that looked like a keyboard almost. Then you got your 2 pieces that go on the side of your keyboard. And each one of those were joysticks. Then you had your pedals. So like your pedals had to be on the ground somewhere where your feet could reach them, like a car.
So it's like a whole like arcade setup.
It was a whole arcade setup.
House.
Yes. And the coolest thing about it was the buttons, certain buttons actually had a glow to them. So like you had buttons that would just like be glowing red. You're like, oh, I want to push that button because it just looks so cool. But yeah, it was 44 buttons, 2 joysticks, throttle handle, radio channel dial, and those pedals. And it was a whole beast. Amazing. To set that thing up, you needed some type of, you needed a desk, you needed a comfy chair.
Pedals,
like
you couldn't be on like the couch.
No,
you would have to be.
The controller is far too big to have on your lap. And you wanted a big screen. So when I played this game, the lights were off. All right?
Oh, yeah.
The lights were off and my pants were off. And I was ready to go, okay?
So you had 3 joysticks in operation is what you're saying.
I was operating 2 of them at a time, though. All right? I can't tell you which 2.
Some multitasking.
Yeah, I was multitasking. I was shooting missiles left and right, in and out of the game.
Looking for those glowing buttons.
Hey, I was happy they glue in the dark. So, yeah, the game was awesome, though. It was also broken up into levels or chapters, something like that. They were really short, though. The game itself was actually pretty damn short for a $300 product.
Yikes.
But you could replay those levels over and over and over again. I don't recall anything from the story. at all. I do remember you could customize your mech. I remember that certain weapons would operate differently. Snipers were really cool in that game. But it was really all based on that controller. When you just to start a level, there were knobs you had to switch on, and you had gauges on screen filling up slowly, and then it would tell you when the mech was ready to operate, and you would hit a button, and you'd see it break out of the hangar, ready to go. It was just so cool. Like, I really, really wanted them to do another one like that with another controller, and thankfully they did release another one.
Really?
For Kinect.
For Kinect. Well, see, and that's just Kinect was motion control, right? So the entire thing, the entire gimmick that made Steel Battalion good is gone. Then
whole point was gone.
See, and that's what I was trying to think in my head right now as you're describing this. I was about to say this is what I want out of VR.
Oh yeah.
But then I hit a snag where I was like, because and that's something I'll get into, because like the idea of VR mech games is something that really appeals to me.
Right.
But the problem is the controls.
Yeah.
And there are two different directions I'm thinking of, and I don't know how to marry those, because on the one hand, you have like, you'll see those pictures of people who are those fans of flight simulators.
Right.
So they have, it's like the 3 monitor setup. They have like a cockpit share. The like 8,000 buttons that you would have in like an actual cockpit, and they play those flight sim games. But that's so niche. I mean, that's like, like all you're doing then is realistically flying a plane, and I'm not that into that. It's awesome. But then on the other hand, you have like VR, but then you need like how do you see a controller? Because if you're going to get that complicated, you can't see your hands.
Exactly. Look, if I'm going to be operating some type of future tech, and that's not just a gun, I want a sweet controller. I'll pay you for it. Hell, I've paid for guns before, not real, but House of the Dead 1, 2, I think it was 2 for Dreamcast. I had like 4 light guns for that. Yeah. Time Crisis, all those games.
A good controller is worth the money.
Yes, it adds to that game. But it seems like and again, that's why I said I want balls. Like these new developers and these giant mech games, they're not doing any of that. I know it's expensive, I'm sure, but there must be a way to get it done.
I think if AR, if augmented reality, ever kind of moves out of the the prototyping in the business world and comes down to a consumer level,
absolutely,
that's where I see that's where you make this generic kind of like button and controller setup.
Yes.
And then go to town on tricking it out and do
give it to me. Give it
augmented,
to me. Yeah. I want it.
I'll spend all the money.
I want that mech game. I want those controllers and knobs and dongles and whatever the hell else. Give it to me. Give it to me.
Yes.
All right. So I don't want to bust my load too early here. Reset. So why don't you go ahead and tell me what you're thinking for mech games? Like, what were you into? What did you like? Okay. I'm sure I've played a few of these. I love these type of games.
I'm gonna try. I feel like there's actually a lot of good parallels, because I'll throw my first 2 back at you now.
Great.
And I really think we're kind of walking along along the same streets in parallel here, because the first one I have here is the Gundam series.
Oh, how could we forget?
Now,
how could we forget Gundam?
And all right, Power. I'm gonna say, like, for everybody who doesn't know, I'm a huge Gundam fan. So my love of Gundam extends beyond video games.
Right.
But that's a topic outside the podcast.
Absolutely.
If you want to hit me up on Twitter, we can talk Gundam all day. But the video games produced in the Gundam series are one of the most interesting and wide-ranging series of games that, as with everything else in the Mech series, are dead.
yeah, absolutely.
Because and I'm gonna highlight what are my personal favorites, which was during the PlayStation 2 era. We saw a couple of amazing games that to me sold the quintessential Gundam experience. And there's sort of 2 different directions, and then there's a third that I'll touch on, which wasn't my cup of tea, but was fantastic.
Okay.
But
I think I know what you're going to say.
For me, the one that was sort of the core of the experience was a game called Gundam Federation vs. Zeon. Oh, it was a PlayStation 2 game, and I still have a copy, and in fact I just played it the other night, and I have all those sound effects stuck in my head. But this was a game. So For those people who don't know, Gundam is a very popular, huge franchise about giant mechs in Japan that broke into the worldwide during sort of the Western anime renaissance when Dragon Ball Z was coming to television.
Right.
Gundam Wing was actually one of the big anime at the time that really made it popular.
For sure, I remember on Toonami seeing it all the time.
Yeah, and so it's this whole, I mean, it's basically kind of like a space opera. Like, it's very, there's a lot of, there's politics involved. There's sort of like the different factions of a war. But the feature of these series is these giant robots. And, similar to Rad, they're just stories tall, these humanoid robots made of these, like, special metals. And they had this very samurai flair.
What's that metal called?
You'll never guess.
I'm just curious. Yeah.
It was called Gundanium.
Gundanium makes the Gundam.
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes the Gundam.
Cool.
Gundam.
Yeah.
But they had this style. They had this samurai flair, which was that the kind of gimmick of a Gundam was they always tended to have these sort of almost samurai-looking sort of helmet shapes to them with this big old V, like this golden V that stuck out of the forehead. And that was kind of the like Gundam look for the longest time. And so for the PlayStation 2 era, they came out with this game that highlighted the original Gundam series, the anime that started all. And it had two sides. There were these two sides at war with each other. One representing space colonies, one representing Earth, the Federation, and the Zeon.
Right.
And so they were pitted against each other in this war. And you got to dive in and you got to pick which side you wanted to be on. Which was amazing because, like, usually it was just like you followed the protagonist. The video game was the story of the series or the show, but it was like you were always the good guy. But in this one, no, it was just you just played out like the events from the war on whichever side you chose.
Awesome.
And based on that, you got access to the robots, the Gundam, or the like mechs that they used for that side. So if you were Zeon, you didn't even touch a Gundam. You had the Zeon Forces mobile suits.
Right.
And then if you were on the Federation side, you got the Gundam eventually, but you had to work your way up. You started in the crappy kind of production, infantry models, and you had to beat these similar.
Because there was only one Gundam in that, right?
That's right.
Technically,
there was just the original Gundam.
The OG Gundam, yeah, hell yeah.
And so you were just like someone in the war, and so you started off with the basic units. You do these episodic missions. Right. You would, as you beat them, you would get resources, which would unlock better and better suits. And then you had to juggle it because each mission you would use one, and then it would get damaged.
I do remember.
And so you had to say, okay, I'm gonna kind of sit this one out, let it repair, bring this other one in.
Right.
And it was just the combat itself was like the gameplay was weighty. So you would drop in, and you're in this giant robot, so it's lumbering. I mean, when you're moving, it has this very kind of like cumbersome feel to it.
Those sound effects were incredible too.
The heft to the footsteps. Right. And then you had this little dash you could do to move around fast. So you could kind of boost. You could get a little bit into the air, but not far. I mean, you couldn't really fly or anything. You could just kind of like do this little hop, and you could do this little dodge. You did, yeah. The second you started boosting, you had like a stamina meter, like a fuel meter that would go down really quickly. And then you had to land again. Okay. And so the combat was very deliberate. Like you would get in. And you had this little burst dodge you could do. So you could just kind of dodge to the side, going for an attack.
Right.
You had your guns, your bazookas, your melee weapons. But that series, it had such a very strategic. It was like a third person almost fighting game.
Yes.
Like you had to be very methodical with your actions.
You couldn't just rush in swinging.
No. This was not like this was not your fast paced Devil May Cry or anything like that. Like it was very, you had to pace yourself, take your time.
Right.
Really dodge. You can't just soak all the damage in.
Absolutely.
And so that to me is one of the kind of quintessential mech experiences. They came out. So Gundam is a series that around that time also there was a game called Battle Assault. And this was a fighting game, side-by-side fighter game with Gundam.
On PlayStation 1.
Yeah, PlayStation 1.
Yes.
I just want to mention it. I'm not a big fighting game expert.
Okay.
But I just want to say, in terms of, we're talking about mech games, I got to mention that the Battle Assault series, one of the best. I mean, if you were a fan already of the mechs and you wanted more Gundam, you could jump into this game. And this was unbelievably fun. It was a great fighting game.
The Battle Assault games, not to even derail you, but them Battle Assault games were so raw, man. Back in the day, we used to play that all the time and just fight each other. And I gotta give a respective shout out to Domon. G Gundam, Burning Gundam. You know, it was funny because at the time I was watching G Gundam, and you know, at the time his like famous move. If anybody wants to look it up, go to YouTube, type in Burning Gundam, Burning Finger. And that's what he would always say, you know, Burning Finger. You know, it sounds kind of perverted now.
Oh, yeah. This fist of mine is shining red.
It's burning red. You know what? But like when you played Battle Assault, this is the one thing I remember from the game was he would not say that. His ult was like Seki Haki Kyoken or something. It was something so crazy. The ultimates in that game were so cool, and they always had like the voice lines from like the actual
epic like Japanese like, original.
So man, I love that game.
But now this is part of the reason I mentioned this is because there's almost an exception to the rule here, which is there's a modern Gundam game.
What?
And it is almost the exception to the rule, or maybe it is for a lot of our listeners.
Okay.
Which is called Gundam Battle Operations 2.
Okay.
So this is a game that came out on PlayStation 4.
Right.
Has been ported to PlayStation 5, even with like the reactive triggers.
Wow.
But it's a free to play game.
Okay, that's why I've never played it.
Yep. And so I jumped in a little bit because I saw Gundam and I was like, sold, download, free, whatever, sign me up, and I jumped in. And the combat is actually pretty impressive. I mean, as you can expect, there's a wide array of like the various mechs from, you know, all the series to choose from.
Does it play like Federation vs. Xeon? Is it more tactical based? Or is
it plays a lot like Federation vs. Xeon, but even more complex and tactical. Whereas like we're kind of bordering on rad territory, which is like a little different. Where it's like it's slowed down, so like you can boost around. But like they introduced this crazy thing where, like, for example, in Melee, there were all these like beam swords, you know, these like sabers, kind of like lightsabers, axes and stuff. When you get into Melee, it's almost like you're playing like a third-person fighting game where it's like you have this like quick attack, and you have your heavy attack, and you can choose. You either come from the top, you do like a low attack or like a mid attack.
Okay.
And then the enemy, because you're playing real people in these battles, it's multiplayer.
Only.
Yeah, it's
that's
online
awesome.
only.
That's
and so you jump in against these people, and they have to choose. They're like, okay, I'm going to block like this, and if they block correctly, they can stagger you, and they can go in for an attack that could knock you down.
Oh man, this is
reactive. But if you trick them, so it's complex. There's a depth to it. There's a lot of, and the thing is, if your mech gets destroyed, you can actually climb out of it. Run around and do stuff.
Oh, you can leave the mech.
And you can even you can steal other people's mechs, or you can booby trap them so they blow up. You know, so you can pop out and be a little pilot.
Wow.
But of course, it's risky because if you pop out, you're just like a little person.
Can they step on you? Can they just?
Yep.
That's awesome.
So the gameplay is impressive, but it's free to play. So zero sensible story, like the bare bones of like a free to play game story with
I'm guessing the graphics are not AAA.
They're not AAA. Okay. They're not bad, but they're not AAA.
Do they have ray tracing or
no?
They
definitely do not.
Cool.
But it's quickly. It's one of those games that they're like, oh, so like you're having fun with this gameplay. Well, you could buy all these different mechs that you might be a fan of from the series. And quickly it devolves into that give us your money.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why for me, I like with any of those games, I jump in. I'm like, I see where this is going. I'm going to get to that point where I'm either going to have to pay or I'm going to have to quit.
Yep.
And I just so for me, that's like I'm like, there's no story. There's no heart behind it. It's a money grab. Yeah. It's fun. Like, the developers did a great job, but they did it so that someone can make money. And that's why, to me, it's almost an exception to the rule, but not quite.
Man, I gotta just tell you, Gundam's incredible. It's funny. The first mech game that I ever saw, like anything of like a giant robot, was Gundam Journey to Jaburo. Yeah, I saw the Japanese trailer for that game when the PlayStation 1 first released in like 2000, and it was incredible. Like the trailer was really slow. I think it was like, I have to go back and take a look, but it was something like they were launching the Gundam or releasing the Gundam from the white base. It was something very simple, and I remember just loving the look of it, the graphics and everything. Because I think that was the first Gundam game on PS2, I want to say.
Yep. Yeah, that predated Fed vs. Xeon. It was like the first of that style of that series.
And I'm pretty sure I played Battle Assault 2 and I don't know if I've ever actually played Battle Assault 1, but I played Battle Assault after that game. Like, after seeing that game and maybe playing that game. Like, that may have been one of my first, like, I knew about Gundam a tiny little bit, but Journey to Jaburo, like, I was like, what is Jaburo? What is this giant? Like, that was, like, one of the first big Gundam experiences I had, and it was freaking awesome. Like, you can't go back and play that game now. It's straight booty. But at the time, oh, man, it was awesome.
So I mean, I could go into Gundam all day. We'll probably have to dive back into that at some point. You know, we'll do like an extra whole.
Oh, we could do a whole. Yeah, we can go for days on Gundam. I mean,
but so to me, you know, like the just kind of the pacing of that, the like style of the gameplay feels very rad in some ways. But you're mentioning a Steel Battalion makes me think of kind of my version of that, which was Mech Warrior.
Mech Warrior. I don't think I've heard of this.
And so this is a game that I first played on PC when it originally came out, and it's a very kind of like, you know, customization focused first person mech game.
Sure.
And similar thing, it was like you would dispatch on missions, and the mission would be very like, you know, defeat this target enemy like mech, or like destroy this comm tower or these bases, and it would kind of even show you like the map layout, and then you had to, as you like garnered like pieces or funds, you had to put together a mech, and it was a very like customization heavy gimmick, where, you know, like there were very styles. You could go really heavy. You could put like all the firepower, you know, like missile launchers, lasers. There were all these different like there were these different weapon categories. There were sort of like the, you know, the like machine guns and the like, you know, like there were like the lasers and the energy weapons. They're like the missile launchers and the range stuff. So you could load up a mech, but then it would be super heavy, super slow. You'd be a sitting duck for anything else to target you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and you had to balance kind of like, you know, the energy draw, the weight limit. Or you could go the other direction and be like really lightweight, and you could just a couple of weapons, you could be super fast and dodge stuff.
Yeah.
But you didn't have a lot of firepower, so you had to be able to be very nimble and on the move. And so this game was when I first, because just the amount of time I spent tinkering and trying to make these like builds that would like be perfect for a mission and go in there. And then they came out with a console series called Mech Assault, which is you know, the same.
Okay, now now you're speaking my language.
so Mecha. So this is all from a company called Day One Studios.
Okay.
And so Mech Assault was basically like putting the Mech Warrior experience on the console. And for me, the notable one, and the one I think everyone will remember, is called Mech Assault 2 Lone Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Because this gave you this Mech Warrior experience, customizing the mechs, going on missions, and it also added an amazing multiplayer mode where you would go in with your mechs, and then at any time you could get out, and then you could boost around as the pilot, and you had this little like gun that you would go around, you would try and steal other people's mechs, get back in. And, you know, the amount of hours I spent playing this multiplayer and getting the satisfaction of, like, getting out of your mech and then just being able to look up and, like, see this giant robot that you were just piloting was, you know, like, really kind of sells the scale of the experience.
I remember that specific number 2, that one was a little more mobile too. I think your mechs were more agile. You could fly, I think, or something like that, or jump, you could thrust a little more. And I mean,
improved that, like these boosters.
It just seemed like everything was sped up in that sequel, and it was. I just remember. It's funny. I didn't actually own the game. I never owned it, but I put hours and hours into it at your place, at other friends' places, and it was so cool. Like. Yep. I don't remember, because it came out for Xbox, right? The original Xbox? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think I had an Xbox at that time, and maybe that's why I wasn't able to play it at home, but I would play that game any opportunity that I could. Like, it was so much fun. I feel like, was there a beam, like, sword or something in that, too? Or some type of slash weapon?
I'm not remembering. There probably was some kind of, like, melee something. That's a good question,
I feel like I played a melee build in that game. But, man, I just remember the graphics were top-notch. It was kind of dark. It was like that Xbox era.
Yeah, it had that gritty, dark feel,
Yeah, but it was an awesome game. I'm shocked that series isn't like around anymore.
But the reason I say that, like, to me, this kind of like when you describe Steel Battalion, so with the original Mech Warrior, at the time, and this was on PC, and it like one of those like older games, and I had a joystick that I was using for like TIE Fighter, like the old X-Wing game, all these different different games. And so you could connect that, because like the original Mech Warrior came out in '89. So I mean, I was probably playing like Mech Warrior 2 on like PC back in the day.
Yeah.
And like the original is a little rough, but so like by the time I was playing like Mech Warrior like 2 and 3, and I connected this joystick, and so I just remember like I would be moving around in this mech, and I had the little throttle like thing to like control the speed I was going at, and I'd be like rotating, and I had the different like my different weapon groups, like missiles on 1, lasers on 2, and I would just like key this out, like switch to the group, like pull the trigger to like fire it, and it was just like it had that tactile experience where I just felt like I was piloting this robot. It didn't have 42 buttons. I think my joystick had like 10, maybe.
Did it have some pedals at least?
Nope. The throttle was like a little wheel, like a little lever I could move up and down. But it had that oomph to it.
Man, I'm telling you, these mech games, like, it's all about how you immerse the player. That's it.
Yep.
It like, you actually have it easy, because like you don't have to craft a great fighting system. You don't have to have the best graphics. You don't even need a story. You just need a goddamn controller.
Yeah.
Like, make them controls work. Make me engaged, and make me feel like I'm piloting a heavy piece of machinery. And if it's not heavy, just make it cool.
Yeah.
It's right there. We're there. I think with, like you said earlier, with the VR stuff and the AR, like we're right there.
This is a good time for it to come back.
It's a good time for a comeback.
Nobody's making that leap.
Mech Warrior, wow. I gotta dive back. I gotta take a look at that series. I don't remember it at all. But
it's definitely
sounds
there.
awesome.
I mean, there's still the latest one that I'm aware of was Mech Warrior 5, which came out in 2019. Wow. So
there's a new one.
So it's still a series that gets some love. I know that the original developers, Day One Games, they were, I think they merged or they were bought up into another studio that now makes World of Tanks, the like free to play. So I'm not exactly sure what the future is for that series, but
gotcha.
Definitely worth taking a look at Mech Warrior 5.
What is Mech Warrior 5 on? Is it on like a PC? Is it on Xbox?
Definitely on PC.
Okay.
I don't know if it ever made it to any of the consoles.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I mean, it's that sounds like that's a series I really don't know much about. I don't think I've ever actually heard. I mean, Mech Warrior, the name rings a bell a little bit, but I don't think I've ever actually played it. And it sounds cool. If they made one in 2019, I should check it out.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the original games that got me into that like customization and that like weighty feel.
Yeah.
And which will lead me into another series.
Okay. All right. Who wants to pull the trigger first here? You're on a roll. I want to let you just, I can see it in you. I can see your back's tensing up. You're ready to spill your beans out here on the table.
I feel like I've set up the perfect lead into my third favorite. So I'm just
certainly
I'm gonna keep the ball rolling, and then I'm gonna let you cap off our
our
Mech game bonanza here. which because when you're talking about customization, and making mech builds,
take it easy.
You can't beat Armored Core.
I knew it was coming. I knew it. When you were talking about, I think it was Mech Warrior. Mm-hmm. it slipped out of me because I was thinking like Armored Core. What a great mech series. Yep. I mean, what a great. And actually, honestly, I think you were the one to introduce me to that series. As a matter of fact.
Yeah, I caught this early on, similarly from a friend who also was part of getting me into like Gundam and giant mechs in general. But Armored Core is to me just one of the original and one of the greatest mech series.
Straight up.
And you know what? I'm going to save this reveal. A lot of people probably already if you know Armored Core, you know where I'm going to go with this. But if you don't, I don't want to spoil it yet. So I'm just going to start with the series itself.
Okay.
Which was Armored Core, which originally came out, I think, for the PlayStation 1. I think like the original one was in like 94, 95,
Right.
America side. But so this was a series and kind of similar style, like kind of minimal story. In a lot of them, it was just like, you know, the world is like uses a lot of like mercenary groups made of these like giant mechs piloted by these like mercs. And you would go on these very episodic missions, like, you know, get into this base, destroy these like robot, you know, these factories, or like this like enemy merc is sending their top pilot against you, like take him out, or you know, survive. But it was the game of mech customization. I mean, I think 80% of the game is just you trying to figure out how to build that perfect mech, and then you would go on these missions because the way this game worked is like as you played the game, you would get these parts, or you would get like money that you could buy these parts with. And it was everything. I mean, just like your legs, your like core, you know, the headpiece, the different weapons, the arms, the like power reactor that actually generated power, the like boosters that gave you speed. Every single part was customizable. And then you would have to go and you'd say, okay, do I want something that's super fast? In which case, you know, I'm only going to get a couple of weapons. Maybe I'm just going to equip dual blades. I'm going to dash in and just slash at everybody. Like in and out, dodging everything. Or I'm just going to make a tank. And you actually had like tank treads. You could just put like a tank tread on it. Armor up, give yourself maximum armor, just make yourself super heavy and slow with the most powerful guns in the game and just blast away at everything.
Yo, I'm getting giddy, man. I'm getting real giddy right now, okay? You throwing all this Armored Core. I mean, I loved it. Armored Core 4, I haven't played Armored Core 4 in what feels like probably like 10 years, but I don't know when it released. But God, man, just the way you're talking about this customization, I'm sorry to cut you off. But this
please.
Armored Core 4, it was incredible, right? Mm-hmm. Armored Core 4 dropped, I think it was for Xbox.
Yeah, no,
Xbox 360.
This was like 14 years ago now.
Oh, was it? Okay, yeah, It's been a while. Armored Core 4, I remember for 360, I was like, this is incredible. I was, at the time, I kid you not, it was the coolest mech experience I ever had. You could throw on, a blade on your arm, a rocket launcher on your other. You could throw on skinny duck legs or whatever so that you could boost. Your weight was really low, so you're moving, but you can't take hits. Like, it was so cool. And I was like, man, this game is freaking awesome. It can't get any better. And then Armored Core for Answers came out.
Yep.
Answers.
Hold
on. Give me a minute, Reset. Let me clean myself off.
Let's take a moment of silence for Answer.
For Answers, or Answer was, it was so freaking. It was so cool. They added that thruster system to that game where you could this high speed boost, high velocity, boom. I mean, it would be like if you were in a Lambo going 0 to 60 in 2 seconds, but in your mech, you would hit it and your mech would take off. I don't know how they worked. Credit to the developers, whoever they are, because they freaking knocked it out the park. The camera's staying on the back of your mech. You're bursting. You're flying over water. You're flying through cities. You're clashing and blasting. It was, oh man.
It kicked it up a notch.
I'll take a breath after that.
I mean, you've talked about like mech series is getting faster as a thing, and that was something Armored Core really picked up on. I mean, by For Answer, they kicked up this speed. I mean, yeah.
Is it For Answer or For Answers?
It's For Answer.
So it gave me the answer I needed. Okay.
It was you looked at Armored Core 4 and you were like, oh man, like is this the answer? And then Armored Core came out and they were like, no, For Answer. But this game, and not only did they give you this high speed moves, this next level of like speed and customization, they also brought in these mega bosses, which was something you had never done.
I forgot about the mega bosses.
Because in the series, I mean, you fought other mechs, you fought, tanks and like other small robots. But then Armored Core, we're talking these like Shadow of the Colossus style, just like
these giant,
massive, town-sized, city-sized, like super robots.
And where would you fight them?
And you'd be like out in the desert, you'd be flying around in the air, you'd be in the mountains, like
oh my God.
up in these satellites, and you'd just be boosting around, and you'd have to like disable parts of these and like get the armor off. They gave it so much energy.
Yes. Man.
But as with most mech games in the mech series,
no, stop there, stop.
No,
stop.
we can't stay there. We can't live in it forever.
Okay, why not?
This was 2008 when For Answer came out.
Okay.
And 12 years later, so in 2012, Armored Core 5 came out. And this was sort of a response
Wow.
because for some people, Armored Core for Answer got so fast that people got a little. They were like, "This is like you're straying from what made Armored Core good." Now it's like it's like an action game,
Right.
and like you could see it. You're like they tried to kind of tune in. They were like, "We'll give you the good parts of both."
Right.
And so they came out with 2 more games, 5 and then 5 Verdict Day, and then that was that they came out in 2013, and then that's it. That's all we've heard.
That's it. 2013. There's
2013. That was the last Armored Core game. Now, Power. When I say they, I am talking about From Software. Better
Dark
known
Souls.
for Dark Souls. So the company abandoned the game that gave them the clout that they needed and the money that they needed to make the Demon Souls series, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro. And you know what? We're sitting here and we're watching the incredible, amazing potential that is their coming game, Elden Ring. And there's this little voice in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
As amazing as this game looks.
I wonder if it's saying what my voice is saying.
Where is Armored Core?
Mine was saying fuck you. Yeah. That's my voice in the back of my head was like, hey guys, hey from it's shouting right now. It's hey, fuck you. Hey, where's my Armored Core? That's what it's saying right now. I want Armored Core. Look, you know this. Our viewers might not know this. Our listeners might not know this. But both you and I are huge Dark Souls players. I should stream my Dark Souls, honestly. Maybe I will. But I love Dark Souls. We're going to have to do a whole
episode on that. I mean, we're just going to have to run through.
Absolutely. We'll have to run through the whole series, all of them.
From the get-go.
From
OG
software.
Demon Souls and on.
OG. All the way back to PlayStation 1 they were making games. I forget what the name of it was, but I own it on my PS3 as a backwards compatible. But I love their series. But what the hell, guys? Come on, like it's not like you have competition. And I don't know why, like is it that expensive to make an Armored Core game? I don't know. And I'm only angry because they did a great job. Like they really did. Like look, I never got into 5, full disclosure. I liked that they sped it up and they were trying to keep up with I feel like they were trying to keep up with games like Gundam. But it's cool. I get it. Like, yes, if you have to tone it down for the fans, listen to what your fans want. I always advocate for listening to your fans. Don't. I know people want to try new things, but if your fans are shouting about something like at the top of their lungs, maybe just give that a tiny little listen, and I think you'll have some success. So hey, if that's what it was, that's what it was. I thought that the protagonist from 5, I remember that's the only thing I know from 5 was the protagonist was this like. I don't know if it was the pilot's name or the mech's name, but it was like Dark Raven or something like that. And it looked sick. It was like it was like one of the coolest looking mechs from Armored Core. But that was really all I recall. And I want another one. Like it's time. It's been what did you say? 2013.
13.
It's time for a new mech game.
Coming up on 9 years.
Yeah, and if From doesn't want to make it. Delegate, let somebody else do it. I don't know, like.
And here's the thing too: is to me, here's what I picture, which is this company has become the experts on this, like this like very grounded, like frame canceling, movement of Dark Souls, where it's just very precise. It's you commit to a move, you have to have those quick reactions, you have to know when to block, when to dodge, when to attack.
They want to eliminate the cheese.
And I want them to say, okay, now let's take everything we've learned from the past, past several years of making these Dark Souls games. And make an Armored Core game. Straight up. So I'm okay. Tone down the customization. Don't make it as like, you don't need to make it as crazy, but say, okay, when you make a build, you're kind of going heavier or lighter. You're like, do I want a blade or do I want like a laser? And then really focus on that sort of like, that tight, that well-paced, really refined combat. But with mechs, they can do it.
They can do it. They're right there. From Software, very successful. And competent developers. I have nothing but faith in their ability to make great games. They have not failed us yet, unlike some others. But I hope they get back to it, or somebody. If anybody else wants to make a mech game out there, and look, like, I don't make video games outside of RPG Maker, but so I know it's difficult, and I don't know what the financial constraints are, and that's cool. And I'm not trying to, like, I don't want our listeners to think like, well, you don't understand, blah, blah. Like, yeah, of course we don't understand, but like, my opinion is, go back to this series. Like, I think there's a fan base there, and even if there isn't, like, diversify a little bit. Like, it has gotten a little like one trick, It's always the same. Like, even Elden Ring, which I think will probably be my game of the year after it drops in January, I believe.
Be surprised.
It still is more of the same, and I would love for them to get back to Armored Core and even branch out further than that. So
just take a hiatus.
Take a hiatus.
Game off.
Yeah.
Give me Armored Core.
Yeah, and don't let George R. R. Martin write Armored Core.
Oh no. Nope.
Let him get back to writing his book. He's a good writer. But let him finish the Game of Thrones series. Okay, that's a whole nother thing.
He's got things on his plate.
Right.
He needs to finish his dinner before he has dessert.
Okay.
but speaking of dessert,
right.
I gotta know. So I mean, you've seen the pinnacle of to me the Mech game experience.
Man, you were right. Yeah, that was
and
great.
now everyone is on the edge of their chair or gripping their steering wheel in their car, wherever you're listening to this, waiting to know Power. What is that game you've been holding out on us?
So I'm a fan of acronyms. Obviously, RAD being a great one.
RAD.
So I'm gonna end this with another one, and it is ZOE. Zoe.
Oh, Zoe.
Yes, Zoe. Okay, fans say Zoe. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Zone of the Enders. Okay.
Zone
of the Enders. This mech series is for sure, without a doubt, my favorite mech series to date. Not including anime, but maybe including anime.
Yeah.
Like, that's how much I love this series. Unfortunately, by series I mean 2 games. There was an anime. I think there was actually 2 anime shorts, and one of them was pretty good. The other one was a little shoddy. One of them followed one of the main villains, which was cool. A villain named Viola. So they had an expanded series there, but Zone of the Enders. I cannot stress enough the emotion that I feel when I think of this game. So Zone of the Enders, right, was developed for PlayStation 1.
Okay.
With no intent to release for PlayStation 1 and PC, of course.
How does that work?
I have no idea. I just know the developers released that they had no intent to actually release it for this game. It was probably one of those things where they had a concept idea and they realized, like, this just won't work on this console. No. So they actually ended up making a prototype for Dreamcast, one of my favorite systems of all time. But it never released on that either. But the soul of this game is from Dreamcast, through and through. And so basically they tried to make a mech game that was more anime relatable or anime based.
Yeah.
And so they're building out this awesome story, but they also wanted the writer wanted this to be very dark, and have dark grounded
non-color,
themes.
I'm assuming.
Yes. And so eventually it was released on PS2 in 2001, I want to say. It was the first one, at least in America.
Okay.
And the first time I played this game, I want to say was on a demo that was attached to like a Metal Gear or something like that. Or maybe it was vice versa, but I feel like it was
back in the day when you get those games,
there was
demo disc.
Either it was on a Metal Gear game or it came with a PlayStation magazine.
Oh,
it was something
man.
like that. And I remember I started the demo, which ended up being like the opening of the game. And it just, you hear this, the music just drops on you. It's this beautiful, like, I want to say synthy, but it was more like electronic, like dance. And it just starts playing and this beautiful, like, voice, this Japanese woman singing this song. And it was just like, at the time, I was so young, I couldn't understand anything. I was like, what is going on? I was like, I'm used to playing Power Stone. Like, this, it was just so cool, and the music was just blasting, and I saw these mechs flying around clashing. And so anyway, so that was the demo, and that was my first experience. I was like, all right. I went to my dad. I said, Dad, check this demo out. He said, oh, that's cool. I said, yeah, this is the game I have to have.
Yeah.
I got to get
you
this.
You like that? I need it.
I got to get this game one day. So somehow I ended up getting it. And the thing I want to say about this game, the first time I played it, I was young, right? So 2001, I probably played it. I would have been 10, so I probably played it, around the age of 11, 13, something like that. Between that range. And the opening of the first Zone of the Enders, there's only 2, involves children being crushed to death. And at the time,
so yeah,
I was frightened of anything horror related, anything that had blood in it, anything at all. And so the opening, this is the opening, so it's not really a spoiler, is basically a colony, if you will. A colony is being invaded by Mars, another colony, another set of colonists that colonize on Mars, and they are invading this colony. They are. I don't think they're taking any prisoners. I can't recall exactly if it's just
so we got
them all.
some real dark, real
but
mature.
They're not there to just kill everyone. They're actually looking for something, quote unquote. They're looking for something, right? And so the main character is this boy. His name is Leo. I think he's 13 years old, and so he is a legitimate child. I was okay with Amuro because Amuro at least was I think he was 15,
16
and
or
he
something.
he had the body of a growing, this was like a real little boy. He was real short, like a little kid, and he had all his friends. And I think what happened is they had been captured. And so they were all tied up to some beam, some metal beam, and they were just, tied around the beam. And one of the soldiers who tied him up basically saw that the main character was detached from the group. And that's because what you end up finding out in the story is the main character was heavily bullied, terribly so, to the point where it affects him as a pilot as well. But
okay.
He releases him and gives him the option to save his friends in some way. All the while, there's battle happening all outside this colony. And so one of the mechs ends up getting hit. One of the mechs that's close to the building that they're in gets hit, and it starts falling inside of this building. And so the friends see it starting to fall down on them, and it's 3 of them. It's 2 boys and a little girl, and they're like, help us, Leo, help us, help us. And he's sitting there in shock. And I think the guy who freed him is just laughing the whole time or something. The guy didn't give a shit.
Oh, man.
And this mech just completely falls and squishes his friends. And
oh, my God.
It's just to make it crystal clear that they're dead. It shows a pool of blood just spill underneath.
Just to really be there's
to be
no doubt.
Hey.
Yep.
So that was the opening of Zone of the Enders, and I knew I was in for a wild ride. I had no idea how wild.
What an opening.
Hideo Kojima. I think we all know him for the most part. Hideo Kojima, great, famous video game director, mostly known for the Metal Gear series. Death Stranding is his newest piece of work.
Type games.
Yeah, he makes very strange, unique games, very cinematic, high production value. And this game was no different. I mean, the graphics were top notch. The art was top notch at the time. PlayStation 1 again. This is one of the first games, probably first year the PlayStation released out, at least in America. So it was really cool to see all these graphics and these giant robots. But this is dark. This is dark even for him at the time. I just did not expect this level of storytelling at the time. The game is rated M. It's not for children, even though the mechs seem
clear going in.
So, nevertheless, the main character ends up stumbling upon, as always, a giant killing machine that is a mech. And earlier, Sam, you asked me a question. You asked me about showing the steel. What was it? Showing the steel cocks, showing the steel balls, something like that.
Yep.
Well, in this game, the main character pilots the mech in a cockpit, which is located on the mech's cock.
Oh yeah,
which is erect. Listeners, if you want to see it, look up Jehuti, Zone of the Enders Jehuti, and you will see a giant, awesome-looking mech. And look where the penis area is. And you will see an erect cock, and there will be a little boy in that cock. cockpit sitting there piloting
yes,
the mech. That's the cockpit to
they took,
Jehuti.
So either got lost in translation or they
balls to the wall, literally, whatever. They didn't give a shit. And they never mentioned it either. So at least they were tasteful.
Lean into it. It is
So he ends up, and the way he ends up falling to this mech was awesome. The colony's being destroyed. He's running. He's trying to figure out where he has to go. And he gets blasted inside that warehouse. There's an explosion. It hits him into this wall, or what you think is a wall, and it turns out to be the entryway to the cockpit, which is like, I guess technically it was nanomachines. So he hits it, and then the thing just opens up. It looks like magic, but the nanomachines are tracked, and he falls into the cockpit, and the nanomachines then seal him in there, and he's in the mech. This mech. So this is where again the balls came to play in my mind. The mech is called Jehuti, but it has a AI system built in that's name is Ada, and she is one of the most compelling characters. Like, if you ever need it, like, I know there's games like Detroit Become Human where they try to tell you, like, okay, androids can become sentient, autonomous, whatever, and they can, like, this game at the time was so cool because Ada is the AI to the machine. She's got a mission that she doesn't want to spoil, to Leo or to the players, because it's pretty crazy, and I don't want to spoil it here, but she's constantly talking to Leo. She's berating him. She's congratulating him. She's asking him questions. She's always interested in whatever he's doing. So the first thing he does is speak with her, and he gets on the comms with basically the Earth. It's like the Earth Defense Force. So I can't remember exactly what their name is, but there's who are you? They get on the comms. Who are you? Who's in the mech? And one thing I always loved about this series are the pilots are called runners, which I always thought was so cool. It's like, who's the runner? Who's running the mech? And so he's like, I don't know how I got in here, blah, blah. And they're like, well, listen, like, you're the only, like, the actual pilot's probably dead. I need you to get this mech to our base, and we will confiscate it, and then you can go free. But we need you to pilot this thing to us. And so he's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do any killing, blah, 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 whatever. And so, anyway, they coerce him into doing it. Of course, he goes out. I think he ends up doing some killing one way or the other, and he doesn't want to. A lot of things happen, but all throughout the while, Ada is talking to him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you actually end up figuring out some interesting things about the people who are working for the Defense Force. And she just, the way they communicate was just so cool. And again, I don't want to get too deep into the story, but Zone of the Enders 1, awesome game. It's definitely worth a playthrough. The mission structure is a little dated. It's go here, fight these, go there, fight them. But it was cool. It was a great intro to the series. The game is short. You can beat it within 8 hours. The graphics amazing. The story amazing. The music really, really good. But all that is really just to preface the sequel. The sequel, Zone of the Enders Second Runner, is like the difference between Armored Core 4 and 4 Answers. Like, they made subtle differences that just basically injected that series with crack cocaine. It was like, okay, you like these things? You liked being able to shoot particle beams out of your hands? You like to be able to thrust? Okay, we're going to let you do that, but 10 times faster.
Kick it up a notch.
So, in combat of Zone of the Enders 1, right? It was typically one-on-one. That's how they built the system. And actually, I believe they pulled in the guys from the Metal Gear team to help.
Okay.
So you would fly around. You'd be flying around a little open hub in a colony. You run into some enemies. You might be 3, but you take them on one at a time. Like, the other ones would typically float around you. They might try to shoot you, but that's it. And you could dash, block. You'd have special sub-weapons, beams, and missiles, and all that cool stuff. But it was pretty straightforward in that sense. The second one threw all that out the window. They were like, look, we want you to be able to fight hundreds of enemies, like thousands of them at a time, and you're going to be able to move faster and do crazier things. So the second one really just knocked it up. But the second one also ended up changing the main character. Not to say that the main character is not in the game, but I also don't want to spoil how that character is in the game. So there's something very interesting about Second Runner, by the way. Zone of the Enders 2 Second Runner. So I don't want to spoil the content of the first game, but by the end of the first game, Jehuti is hidden on an some planet off world, wherever. Mm-hmm. And the opening of the second game is the main character of that game, now Dingo, not Leo. This new character named Dingo, who's ex-military. He finds Jehuti. Interestingly enough, the original story of this game was supposed to be about Jehuti, the Mech and Ada, being addicted to the energy source that powers it. Like, it was going to be like a rehab story. That was what captured Kojima's attention initially. And so it was going to be all about how she was addicted to this energy that was powering, and she couldn't break loose, and she barely survived her addiction, and then they completely scrapped it. So, but I just found that fascinating. I was like, oh, that would have been an interesting story. A robot addicted to drugs.
Really dives into these very strange storylines.
Really,
and goes all in on them.
Exactly. You're really making a case there. Zone of the Enders 2, it just took everything to the next level, right? So you had a villain that was directly tied to the main character, which the first game did not have, which I loved. You had the fast-paced combat, balls to the wall action. You had weapons that I'd never seen in a mech game before. So even talking Armored Core and Gundam and Rad and all these other games, like in this game, there's a weapon called the Vector Cannon. And the vector cannon, and you have to plant. You cannot be levitating. You have to plant your feet on the ground. Summon this thing. This thing takes like maybe 20 to 30 seconds to pull off. Like, you have to sit there and just watch all these gauges pop up. Then these things start popping up around your mech, and you're watching these turbines spin and gauges fill up. And when you finally can shoot it, this thing will literally eradicate over 100 enemies on screen. If they're lined up, you'll hit them with a beam that looks like a Kamehameha wave. It's just a particle beam that just destroys. And all of the special effects looked incredible on the PS2. They made a remaster of this series. Actually, they made a remaster for PS3. Then they did it again. They updated it. And at this point, it plays beautifully on PS4, PS5. Okay. They even put it in VR, so you can play this game in VR. The view is from the cockpit, and it's. I've tried it. It's honestly not the best.
What I've been dreaming of. The thing I've been waiting for
get in there.
Is to stare out of robot cock.
Yeah.
The perspective I've been missing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but it didn't. The VR component is kind of half baked. Full disclosure. They did not do a good job with that, but everything else was great. I mean, the particle effects, everything looks wonderful. The story in the second game is on a whole nother level. Again, I don't want to spoil too much, but essentially,
but you can pick it up on PS4 or 5 now.
You can pick it up on PS3, 4, or 5, and yeah, it just plays beautifully. Man, the Zone of the Enders series is another one similar to Armored Core where. Konami, those are the guys who made it with Kojima's lead. Obviously, Konami and Kojima, well, not obviously. I don't know if our listeners know, but Kojima used to work for Konami, and then there was some sort of falling out around Metal Gear Solid 5, I want to say, and they have been on opposite sides of the coin ever since. So now, if Konami were to make this game, it would be without the direction of Kojima. Or the actual directors of the game. I think his name was Shuyo Murata. And so I would be a little nervous. It's not like From Software where they still have a good team. I don't know what Konami's doing, but I would love for Zone of the Enders 3 on PS5.
Man, yeah, I would love for the return of the mech genre. I would love to see a Zone of the Enders. I played the second one. I never did play the first one, so I know of Dingo and I know of that story. But I didn't get to see the transition from sort of how they introduced it and how they brought in this gritty undertone. But the character driven and the story driven, action driven, like vibe of that game is such a refreshing, departure from sort of the more grounded stuff that, we've looked at in some of the other games. But ultimately, I think, be it your fast-paced, amazing mech games, be it your, grounded customization
Yes.
baked mech
Yes.
games. The real question out there is, where the fuck are the mech games?
It doesn't matter if they were great in the past because they don't exist in the future. It's sad, man. I don't know. I don't know which developer wants to make one. Here we are. We're close to E3. I'm hoping that somebody will drop one. And look, there were some great mech games that released in the past, like 10 years. I know there was one that I never played. Maybe you played it. It was like a mobile game or tactical mech game, something Bastion or something like that, some other. It was very tactical. You fought I think you fought kaiju.
I know there were a few. There was Into the Breach.
Into the Breach. I think that's the one I was thinking of.
Tactics, turn-based, and that was fun. It
Yeah.
was definitely a good little mech-based game. I definitely enjoyed it.
Right. But what we're talking about are triple
A level, yeah, mech games. Well,
maybe one day soon. There are things that I want from them too.
Yep.
I think that just not to go off topic, but I really want a mech game where just give me a 1 minute trailer. I'm playing as a little character, whatever, I walk to the hangar. I hop in my mech. I'm seeing the inside of the mech as the pilot. I'm seeing everything light up, boom, and then I'm piloting and I'm flying off the face of the earth. That's it.
And sell me on it. That's all I need to draw me in.
Literally. If you can give me that, I'm all in.
All right. Well, Power, after talking about the amazing stuff that we used to have in the mech series, mech games, what would you rate them?
Mech games, what would I rate them? My goodness. So look, the series, the mech series is dead right now, right? However, the mech games that we did get are almost all great games. That game that we even talked about tonight, out of all 6, that more than that with our series, that I would say was a bad game or a game that I would never play or whatever. Like, they're fun games. I think people look forward to hopping in a giant machine and shooting a big old gun or slashing or whatever. So with that said, I'm gonna have to give it 4 Metatron ores out of 5. And by the way, Metatron is the substance that powers Jehuti from Son of the Enders. That almost got her addicted.
Yep.
Okay.
4 out of 5. Those addicting Metatron ores.
Yeah, those Metatron ores. I might have one after this.
Well, I think I'm right there with you. It's like you said, the run we had was good, and I just hope that the people who are growing up with gaming nowadays also get to experience some of that. They get a run of their own, and that we get to see a revival of a genre that really, hit its stride throughout the late 90s and the early 2000s.
Right.
And so, if I was going to rate mech games, I think I would have to give it a 4 out of 5 Gundam Wing Gundams. The series that started it all. There were 5 of them, by the way.
What rating was that? The Gundam Wing Gundam?
So 4 out of the 5 Gundam Wing Gundams.
How many Gundams was in that show again?
There were 5 of them, man, and 4 out of 5. So you can pick whichever one you didn't like. That's the one you discard.
Oh,
the other 4
man.
were good. But with that, we're already running out of time. So once again, thank you so much to everybody for listening in.
Thank you, guys.
This has been Power. I've been Reset. Power up, and if you don't like it, reset.
Reset it.
And as we reset for next week, let's hit that power button and get to playing.